Hi, I'm Nan Simonsen. I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. I'm also, well, an author of a book, Aging Powerfully, that I wrote to celebrate turning 70. That was 4 years ago. The point being, most people turning 70, I shouldn't I shouldn't generalize, but a lot of people turning 70 think, oh, this is the beginning of the end, instead of the way I saw it, because I was familiar with lifestyle as medicine. I was part of a lifestyle medical clinic as a health coach, which I still am. And I believed and believe with all my heart that if we practice lifestyle as medicine based on the pillars of the College of Lifestyle Medicine, we can live well through our 70s, into our 80s, 90s, and beyond, like the people of the blue zones. And that is why I wrote the book, because the word powerfully is an acronym. 10 letters for 10 lifestyle modalities that I outline. But the book begins, and that's one of the things I wanted to make a point of today. It begins with a memoir, a bit of a memoir. It begins with a childhood that was troubled. It begins with two suicide attempts. Now, no, this isn't a maudlin thing. These were stated as facts. A 40-year marriage with the death of my husband to esophageal cancer. So in other words, some things that I had to work through. Well, especially the young kid things, I have come to realize may still be haunting me. I'm currently, and I'll show you my notebook. She said, make a notebook. And being a good student, I made a notebook. And I am part of Dr. Brooke Goldner's. Oh, I didn't do what I usually do, too late, and bring out her books. Goodbye Lupus, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, Goodbye Lupus, Goodbye Lupus, Hello Delicious. That's her cookbook. And even her husband, Thomas Tadlock, has Miracle Metabolism. He is a physiologist and they're both experts on cellular biology. She actually studied that, and on uh, improving the body with food and movement, and basically lifestyle is medicine. But she, more importantly, has shown the world that she has been able to heal people with a protocol, a food protocol that is very specific. And I followed the protocol without being part of her group, which meant shared personal experience. I did that September 2nd through the middle of October, 6-week period. When that began, I had pain in my knee, pain in my elbow, pain here. I have high autoimmune antibodies for rheumatoid arthritis and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and then inflammatory markers like a high ESR, erythrocyte sedimentary rate, SED rate. And all of that not only moved in the right direction, the antibodies have to die, and I don't know if they're dead yet. I'll find out. I'll tell you the rest of the story in a second, but I'll find out when I'm having that test, the first week of March, because I will be retesting. But everything else moved in the right direction. The ESR, which had been, and some of you are thinking, get on with it now, we know this, but some of you don't, had been high for 6 years at that point. I'd seen 3 rheumatologists, nobody could bring it down, went to normal. So the protocol worked. She is working with people right now in a group. We're on day 17, and I say we because I'm part of that group. I decided that I got great results, but when I went back to eating my whole food plant-based diet, very healthy diet, that actually now going on 7 years prior, when I adopted that diet, cured the obvious things that tell us that we are going into a black hole as it relates to the standard American diet. I went whole food plant-based. I had all kinds of things wrong, from way high cholesterol and pain all over from the RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and pre-diabetic. Just I was, I'll say, a mess waiting to get messier, which is what the health outcome and the health state of affairs is with most of Americans who eat the standard American diet. So that was all gone, but there were these little lingerings, and that's what I wanted to undo. Well, I undid them, then went back to my regular eating, and the ESR, the other things got better and better, but the ESR, which is a inflammatory marker, went up. Didn't go up anywhere the way it was before, but it went up over uh, normal. And so I decided to do the program again. And she even asked me because she knew the story and she had my labs and she understood the success I had on my own. And a lot of people have done it on their own with her by reading her book and using the cookbook and all of that. And she said, "Why are you in the group?" And I said, "Because I need more from you because I think there's something going on up here." Um, and it turns out that that is right. I thought that I had overcome feelings of inferiority, feelings of, ah, if I get weepy, live with it because I will. Feelings of never being good enough, feelings of not being able to do anything right, and kind of hiding that from people. And I'll tell you what precipitates that. It's the fact that I'm neurodivergent. I heard that word and I loved it, neurodivergent. In other words, I have clinically diagnosed ADHD that can be really, hold on a minute. I don't know if you can see under the door. Sorry. Or shoot, I just kept going. Um, ADHD that can really kind of wreak havoc because I'll catch myself too many times thinking, there you go again, Nan. You're not doing that the way other people would do it, because I get off track sometimes. And yet I can get everything done ultimately. I'm left-handed. And somebody introduced themselves and said, "Oh, well, blah, blah, blah about me, but I'm left-handed," or because I'm left-handed. And I looked that up, and that can lead to some differences in normality, neurodivergence. Um, Sorry, should have let her in. And I'm also dyslexic and have some learning disabilities, which aren't a big deal because, see, I can communicate with you just fine, and I look and sound together. But I'm always hiding things that I don't do well, such as paperwork. I had a business. We sold millions of dollars of Tupperware a year at expectation party sales. I ran a Tupperware franchise for nearly 30 years with my husband, and we were very successful. I could sell because I believed in the product, and I could sell success, and I could speak and inspire. What I couldn't do was I couldn't even place an order. He felt so sorry for me when I began. I was talked into, "Well, why don't you try selling it?" I had a new baby and I wanted to get out of the house. And he felt so sorry for me because I kept messing up people's orders and I had to go to their house and fix it. That he started doing my orders for me. And then when I became a manager, a Tupperware manager, I couldn't fill out my paperwork for the office properly, and he would do that. In other words, there's these things that I was ashamed of. Well, I got triggered. So you're wondering, where's all this going, Nan? I'm going to let her take one more pass, and then I'm going to throw her rear end out if she doesn't stop. Um, and then I say, um, 4 days ago, I just had a meltdown, total meltdown, and it was triggered because in the um, the Goodbye Autoimmune um, Rapid Recovery group that Dr. Goldner offers. And when she said, and why are you joining the group? You have seen success. And we have people in the group that have just debilitating physical maladies, all kinds of autoimmune diseases, a lot of pain, disability. And I'm sorry, people. And I don't have that visual expression of all of that because that's not where I started. But I feel every bit as physically broken because of emotional challenges. Okay. Come on, sweetheart. And some of you are thinking, oh, well, of course, she could just edit that out. And I'll say to you up front, everybody who does this kind of thing edits out things that aren't good. I'll never edit out things that aren't good. Why? Because I can't figure out how. People will show me 5 times and I can't get it right. So I'm admitting something that I hate about myself. I don't, numbers, words, concepts kind of go like this in my brain. So we have, as part of the rapid recovery group, a a log that we fill in, and the way that they help people stay on track for healing is that we fill out the log with everything we eat, and we take photos of what we everything that we eat, and they all have to balance. If you say you've had 4.3 ounces of something, you've got a photo of it, you have it on the log, all of that has to work out. Doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? It brought me to my knees. Day after day, I was getting zeros on where, like, food. My food was perfect. I've never once deviated from the plan food wise, but I'd get a zero on my food. And I was filling this out like an anxious little girl. Oh, please like me. Please like what I've done. Doesn't this sound so silly? And yet it's my reality. And I'd get a zero and I'd get a this wasn't done and that wasn't done. And the other day I had to take my log out with all the pictures that were involved and put it back in twice in one night because I couldn't get some things straight. It's a hard thing for me. Well, in the middle of the night one night, I don't know if any of you know what I mean by ruminating in the middle of the night and not being able to sleep. It was, what was it, 3 in the morning? And I was ruminating. My mind was doing this and this, the hamster wheel, because all I could think about was how many zeros I had gotten, how ridiculous I looked, how with all my might I couldn't make this work because this shameful thing about me was being brought back. And it took me back to being a kid that felt never good enough. You'll even read, if you read my book, that even at 16, when I lived in a storage room at my dad's art gallery, I was never enough. He thought I was fat at 26 pounds, 126, and told me to stay in the room when he had clients in the gallery because I didn't make him look good. So this kind of came back to me again and again. And when I jumped in the ocean, because I couldn't stop eating and throwing up, I was bulimic from the time I was 15. And I didn't know what else to do. And the Coast Guard, because it was early in the morning, nobody was around, pulled me out. And when he came to pick me up, and he kept yelling, how could you do that to us? How could you do that to us? And I hadn't lived with him. He let me live in the gallery when I couldn't live with my mom anymore. And I told him, I can't stop eating and throwing up. They never brought it up again because I was a shameful person. So these things I thought when I wrote them, matter of factly, in the first 30 pages of the book, I thought I was over all of that, but I'm not. And that log brought up this shame. And I woke up, came downstairs, 3 in the morning. I'm crying my eyes out while I'm looking at my logs and all the things I had gotten wrong when I tried so hard to be right. And my husband came down at 4, I don't know, 20, because he gets up early to get to work on time. He does his sauna. He goes walking up a mountain near us, and that's an hour. And anyway, I'm crying my eyes out. What's wrong? What's wrong? I keep getting things wrong. Um, and this is my first husband, passed 15 years ago, so this is my second husband. And I couldn't stop crying all morning. I took a walk. It was a drizzly day here, and that's wonderful. We need drizzle, we need rain. Uh, and it was a drizzly day, and I put on a coat and I went walking because I didn't want to ride. I was afraid that the streets would be too slippery on my bike. And I went, we have a street near us, Chapman, which has the oldest of our historic homes. I'm in a historic home area. And I designed 3 of those landscapes. I was a landscape designer, Nanscapes, and I ran that business for 15 years. And I stood at my gardens and just tried to remember that I'm really good at something. Now, this is getting more pitiful by the minute. And I knew it. And I thought to myself, I'm standing in the rain, staring at one of the biggest, most grand gardens, and thinking, I'm okay. Got home, still crying. And then I realized I had totally, it was like a meltdown. I call it a meltdown, but it was what I needed to do to bring to the forefront that what she is teaching us in the rapid recovery group is so spot on and valid. We're there to heal ourselves primarily with a food protocol, but Dr. Goldner is a board certified psychiatrist. She's a trauma specialist. She's a cellular biology specialist. So she's this confluence of magical properties or magical skills that if we work the program, now some people have a hard time with believing that anything but something practical and visual, like you eat the food, you get a certain result, is meaningful. But what she every day puts out there for us in 2 or 3 videos per day, every day, is she talks, gosh, does she talk that much about the food? No, because the food's very straightforward. She talks about what's in here, what's in here. And we do exercises. So on my log, and part of what the log asks for is if you're having trouble, you write that out. And it was clear I had had a meltdown, that you probably, because all of my up to that was, sunshine and roses. And that suddenly blew up, and there was conversation with her and her husband and me as we looked at what was going on. And what I realize is what I'll get out of this program is probably all my health markers exactly where I want them. In other words, I'll be as good as I can get with Hashimoto's. Some people can eliminate their thyroid autoimmune disease with this protocol, completely eliminate. She eliminated lupus. You can't do that. Multiple sclerosis, you can't do that, according to some doctors, and yet she's able to do that. So I'll get as much as I can because I'm following directly what they're saying. But the one thing that I have to be sure to get right is this other factor, and that is what the title of this talk is, which is The Surprising Power of Emotions. And I did some research after I decided that that's what we would talk about. And the rest of this I'll be just reviewing and reading with you. But I needed to, they say you're as sick as your secrets. I'm not pitiful. I'm just incapable in some things. And it does nothing like what just happened. Filling out forms, getting things wrong. I just wrote a friend a birthday card. I can't even write a birthday card without whiting out things that I did wrong. and I did. She's got a white out there because I have this little roller pen that I live with. Because I just do things wrong. Not my head will think a thing, and what comes out of my hands or my mouth tends to be different. So that's the story. I've said it out loud, and I believe that with the direction that we are getting in this group, with a psychiatrist, with a physiologist, with the food being right, as well as our, okay, I'll say the sentence that I wanted to clarify earlier. If we work it, it works. Some people cannot connect to that. It's too woo-woo. But and I do every assignment she's giving us, we get assignments to work these things. And I'll mention a couple that you could even do on your own. I can't and won't share her proprietary materials that I can maybe, what I'd love to do is say, if you could use some help, this program is remarkable. Where do you get a therapist at that level to help you on a daily basis for 42 days? It was the best decision I could have ever made, because I believe, and I've heard this from other people, I've read it from other people, I believe that when this is over, I'll have insights that will, it helped when I wrote this, get things on paper, but that will help then turn some of those scars into just accepted memories, which I thought they were, but apparently not. Okay, so this is such a powerfully important subject because emotions and thoughts truly do affect us at a cellular level. Biologically, we're affected due to the brain-body connection. And we're going to talk about that. And if you're watching this, you may even want to write some not clue words, just make little notes to yourself of what might apply to you, and therefore may be something you will want to give additional attention to. So here we go. First of all, chronic stress and worry. I read these things in materials that she had put out, or words that she had spoken in her podcast, because you can catch her every Wednesday in her question and answer sessions, which I've listened to, what, 42, 44 of those, because there's a lot of information as people ask questions and she gives answers. And I always thought, I don't have chronic stress. I don't have stress. You know what I didn't get? I didn't get that this constant worrying in my brain, this wheel that goes round and round and catches me all day long, not being neuronormal. In other words, doing kind of wonky things that I can get. Well, for example, my husband threw away the compost and said, "Whoa, we had a bread problem today, didn't we?" And God dang it, he saw the 4 pieces of burnt toast. And I said, "No, we had a problem today and yesterday, because both today and yesterday, while I'm trying to toast his toast for his avocado toast, I got distracted and burnt to a crisp." Now, quite often, what he doesn't know, and don't tell him, is because I do believe in the Maillard effect and the acrylamide that happens when you burn things and what it does to our body. But he has no idea how many times I've gotten that toast and scraped off the black stuff, but this stuff was incinerated, and by golly, he saw it. Anyway, but things like that, and I'll catch myself all the time doing things like that. People say, "Well, why don't I come over and we'll cook things together?" I would never have somebody come here and cook something with me, because they'd see the wonky things I do. I wouldn't have somebody plan a meeting with me, because they would see that I take notes, but they are impossible to read, because I first can't spell, but also can't get things written out. So that's enough of my detailing the evidence of what I'm saying. Now let's get to applicable things. So negative thought patterns, let's talk about that, like chronic stress and worry. And if you're thinking that's not you, I'll just say think again. Think again about what's going on in your mind, and some of this will become a little bit more clear. Constant worry or feeling of overwhelm triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Chronic stress links to inflammation, which is a driver of autoimmune diseases. It weakens our immune function. It increases vulnerability to illness. Elevated blood pressure and cardiovascular strain are part of what the resulting effect of our worry creates. Impaired memory, cognitive decline, and self-criticism and negative self-talk are just as bad. They are internal, or if there is an internal negative dialogue, it can lead to depression and anxiety, poor immune response, and which means lowered natural killer cell activity and increased risk of emotional eating, binge behavior, or addictive patterns. So I lived for almost 50 years with bulimia. It began at 15 and I couldn't stop it. I don't know how many therapists, I don't know how many modalities we tried. I was able to stop with my whole food plant-based diet and a book called Brain Over Binge. But even now, I can get back and ruminate on how could I have gone that long with that kind of behavior and get into the whole shame thing with that. I'm hoping to work through that with Dr. Goldner's help. Number 2, suppressed and unprocessed emotions, besides chronic stress and worry, are like anger, like grief, like fear, can manifest as physical symptoms. This is related to the concept of the gut-brain connection, as emotional distress affects gut health through the vagus nerve. This leads to gut issues like IBS, inflammation, flare-ups of conditions like microscopic colitis, ulcerative colitis, affects digestion, absorption of nutrients, and even gut microbiome imbalances. And another thought pattern that affects us in a negative way is pessimism and catastrophizing. And again, if any of this kind of pings something with you, just write it down, something to go back to. Persistent negative outlooks activate the fight or flight response, even in non-dangerous situations associated with higher rates of heart disease and chronic inflammation. It slows down recovery from illness or procedures, and it can change our ability to heal from any otherwise low-level infection. Positive thought patterns for health. Optimism and gratitude. These are linked to better health or heart health, improved immune function, and lower rates of chronic disease. Gratitude practices like journaling reduce cortisol and increase dopamine and serotonin. So when we hear, because we hear this all the time, do a gratitude practice, 3 things every night that you jot down before you go to bed, 5 things every day that you wake up and you look forward to, that you're grateful you have the opportunity of experiencing. These seem trite, and yet these are actually as important as what we eat for our longevity. Self-compassion, positive inner dialogue reduces stress and increases emotional resilience, and helps us with past trauma as well as disordered eating patterns. And then mindfulness and present focused thinking. Practices like meditation, mine I do every evening, Kirtan Kriya, routine. I was doing it in the morning. Now I do it every evening. It's a 12 minutes, KIRTAN, curtain Kriya. Um, and it's a guided meditation that's been really helpful. Um, shift the body from the sympathetic fight or flight state to the parasympathetic rest and digest state, and that improves digestive health, nutrient absorption, hormonal balance, particularly affecting cortisol, thyroid function, and reproductive hormones. And then emotional resilience and immune system. Um, Resilient people are able to fight or to face adversity without being consumed by negative emotions. Studies show that resilience improves health outcomes by lowering inflammatory markers like CRP, which is, oh man, I could tell you this at the flip of a switch. C-reactive protein, and the ESR is the erythrocyte sedimentary rate that I was referring to, boosting recovery rates post-illness and surgery. And gosh, when we think of all of the things that we take for granted have nothing to do with what we're thinking. For example, you know someone, they're going into a medical procedure. You going into a medical procedure, quite often the last thing you're thinking of is, am I thinking straight? Am I ruminating? Am I catastrophizing? Do I have negative thoughts that are dominating? Because yes, they can change the outcome of something simple in terms of cellular repair. Because again, emotional resilience and immune system and the immune system are hand in glove, enhancing mental health, sleep quality, and are both critical for cellular repair. And then there are specific links between emotions and physical conditions, and they include heart disease, being reactive of anger, hostility, depression, increased risk factors for hypertension, arterial sclerosis, and heart attacks. Immune or autoimmune diseases, chronic stress, and emotional trauma exacerbate the immune system dysfunction, worsening conditions like Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, and lupus. Digestive issues, anxiety, and fear activate the gut-brain axis, potentially causing or exacerbating IBS, colitis, and leaky gut. And then cognitive decline. Chronic stress can impair memory and cognitive processing, highlighting the importance of calming techniques for healing from long COVID. I've had COVID twice. I had long COVID twice. And place that I saw a marked change was which was really interesting, in my cognitive functioning, the executive functioning. The first time it went on almost 8 months, and I thought I couldn't think straight as it was. I look back at videos that I shot then, I could barely keep my words together in a cohesive, coherent way. And that was acknowledged as part of the damage that that long COVID caused people. There was a whole thing about it. There were even clinics that were set up because of the effects of long COVID. And then the second time it was less, but it still caused the same thing, but for a shorter period of time. And then let me give you some actionable steps that, if any of this is applicable, might be helpful. Daily gratitude practice, adopt it, encourage, or reflect on, keep it simple, 3 things that we're grateful for before we go to bed. Breathing exercises, short, mindful breathing exercises to quickly calm the nervous system helps. Mindfulness meditation, the benefits of consistent meditation, possibly mentoring others that you know to do it so that you can compare the value of your different practices. And then journaling, writing emotions that can help release suppressed feelings and gain clarity. That is probably the most important thing that I am getting from rapid recovery right now. Yes, the food is so specific and so pointedly directed to cellular healing at all levels. I'll come out of this 6-week period with the strongest, most vibrant body I could have, but I'm also going to come out having learned and dug deeply into self-healing in that way. There was a exercise, I'll share with you a couple of exercises that Dr. Goldner had us do. My situation is specific to me, but a lot of people have to be clear as to why they are doing what we are doing in this group at all, to stay focused on it. And one of the activities that she gave us was to think ahead in the present tense and say to ourselves, now that I'm healthy, how do I feel? Healthy me ahead of time, because a number of people aren't anywhere near healthy right now. Now that I'm healthy, how do I feel? What do I do? I get to jump on my bike. I get to go to an amusement park and get on one of those bumpy little trains with the kids and enjoy every minute of it. I get to go horseback riding, which I haven't done forever. I get to hike every day, like my husband does at 70. What is he now? I'm 74, he's 73. Up a mountain every day for an hour. And then finally, who do I inspire? Because we all do better if we make a difference in other people's lives. That was one of the things. Another thing that she had us do, she just announced, I suppose it was yesterday, and I'm going to be doing it when I get off today. And that is to let go of harmful beliefs. I'm going to examine why I hold on to the need to evaluate myself so negatively, the need to keep a running list of what I'm doing wrong instead of the running list of what I'm doing right. There's something that's being fed by that. That's how we are. And our assignment is to write down what beliefs I am letting go of and what that will relieve me of. Isn't that a great assignment? See, this is like being with a therapist every single day, walking you through as you get stronger and stronger, more and more complex exercises. But the day of my breakthrough maybe, we were doing something that has to do with cognitive behavioral therapy. And I remember the first time doing that, well, I'd done it for years with my faulty thoughts when I was in therapy with the eating disorder. But when my husband passed away, and I was terrified that I couldn't live without him, because remember, he took care of everything. I was married, met him at 18, married him at 19, married to him for 40 years. I was almost 60. When was I? Yeah, I was almost 60 when he died. And I didn't know what I could do without somebody that did all these things for me. He even wrote me a big, long journal of how to do things because he even worried about it. But guess what? Boom, boom, boom. I've managed and managed quite well. But there's a process that we can go through, and this will be it, and then I'll let you go. And this is a thought analysis, and it was very helpful. I did it. The sheet looks like this, but you make your own. And the first thing you write is the situation that is brought up emotions. And then you rate how you feel about that. And it could be, you could see it as a mood or what your thoughts are, but what is your mood as it relates to that on a scale of 1 to 10? How, and for me, I was a 10 that day. I was off the charts with anxiety over this situation. Because of the way I evaluated it, which was I am not good enough, I can't do this form, and I never will be. Okay, and then my thoughts. What caused that mood to be so strong? And that would have been what I just stated. And then what facts support that? So it's the situation, 1 to 10, how it's affecting you, my thoughts that cause that belief, and then the facts that support it. What are the facts that support what I think to be true? And then what are the facts that do not support that to be true? And I was able to look at both of those and understand how I was catastrophizing. And then balance the thoughts, and take all of that into consideration, considering this and considering that. How bad really is this? And then finally rate your mood at the end of it. That is a version of, and a clinical version of cognitive behavioral therapy that can be very, very helpful. Walking through that helped me let go of a lot of emotion. Yesterday, I had to take down my journal and put it back up because last night, because I messed something up again, but guess what? It wasn't a big deal. I'm trying to embrace that word neurodivergence and understand that some things don't come as easily, but it's no big deal without the further than condemnation of worth, value, or anything read into it. These just aren't the things I do well, but here's the list of what I do well. And that was one of the assignments she gave me. She said, I want you to write every day and keep a list of all the things you've done well. So I'm done. Sorry to keep you so long, but there was a lot to say here. And if it wasn't of interest, you're not around right now anyway. So I hope it was of interest. All right, well, I'm going to get back to my group. I have a group here in the background, and we're going to talk about this and break it down and all of that. And I appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here. Please subscribe, consider the book, and share it if there's somebody you know that could be helped by this. And these subtleties, they're going to get you. They're going to bite you in the buns. Okay. Have a great day. I know I'm going to. Bye-bye.